Tuesday edition, section 1904. We are still internationally connected here as I am in my final few hours from Spain, although I will say where we are located in Spain, for those that listen to Monday's podcast, we mentioned that we were in the city of Girona. Was walking through the city today and a sticker on the side of a building really caught my eye, and it said, "Hey, tourists, Girona and Catalunya is not España." Now that's pretty deep. That could be a really, really deep conversation about all the political commentary and ongoing political dialogue here in Spain, but I don't think we have time for that. Instead, it's going to be a shorter podcast than normal, a little bit of Padres, a little bit of NBA, some final thoughts from me as John is holding it down back at the home base in San Diego. And a good morning, John. I know it is, just about 10 a.m. where you are, 10 a.m. on the button. It's 7 p.m. where I am. And as mentioned, I'll be in the air in 24 hours. We have a 2 o'clock flight out of Barcelona. So 2 p.m. through Philadelphia. We are expected to land at about 9:30 on Wednesday night. So my participation for Wednesday's Section 1904 will be even more limited than it has been here for the last couple of weeks. But I think we're sad to leave, but we're probably ready to get into a routine that doesn't include eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner someplace out and about at a cafe, a restaurant. Not that we haven't been treated to the most wonderful meals over the last 14 days, but I do think it'd be nice to actually cook a meal again. So I'm looking forward to that, even with the stress of travel. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. The funny side of this for me is that our mutual friend, Cesar Torres, who has been on a previous episode, has been house sitting for you while you've been out. And it's very funny to me because you're like, man, this city that I'm in is so great, and we went and we found this great restaurant, and we had a glass of wine, and it's just so beautiful and everything. And then I get text from Caesar that's like, man, IB is awesome. Like, I found this great breakfast place, and like I found this coffee shop, and like it's just so cool to be able to like see the sunset from the roof deck and walk down to the beach whenever I want. And so it's like both of you are kind of on vacation, and like yours is coming to an end, and Caesar's is coming to an end because I'm assuming you're kicking him out of the house when you get back. And it's been very funny, and it's just a reminder to me that like sometimes this is why like I haven't really done a lot of staycations, but I'm not against them because sometimes you just got to get out of your life for a little while, and that's where you get the clear head. It's fun to travel and see things, and I've loved all your pictures of the food and the chapels and the Game of Thrones locations and the background noise and all that, but It has been funny to me to kind of live through both of you guys at the same time, experiencing like a new city that you don't spend a lot of time in, and one of them is like a short car ride away, and the other's on the other side of the earth.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's been, like I said, I think we're a little bit melancholic about leaving. We're excited to be back home, but living out of a suitcase, there are just certain things that you can grow a little exhausted by. Living out of suitcases. Trying to book a little bit of travel, the stress of us needing to be on a train out of Girona tomorrow so that we get into Barcelona at 11. And then from there, do we take another train or are we going to take a taxi? We're sort of going to fly by the seat of our pants on that one. And then we made a complete mess out of our seating situation. We had seats booked right next to one another. So we had the airplane that we're flying to Philadelphia, 3 seats, 3 seats, 3 seats, right? 3 by 3. You understand? Like 3 on the left, 3 in the middle, 3 on the right.
Yep.
And we paid for the extra leg room. Didn't pay for it, but we had some points. By the way, I'm just going to let everybody know I'm in the lobby of a hotel. My wife is napping, and since there's video involved with this when John and I talk, I didn't want to take any chances.
Fair.
So you might hear some stuff in the background, but par for the course when it comes to this podcast and me and my contributions to it. So we booked the middle and the aisle so that we could at least be next to each other, and we used some points to upgrade those seats. And as we were checking in today, we noticed that the row behind us had 3 open seats. So we did that thing that a lot of people do where we said, oh, let's change our seats. You take one aisle seat, I'll take the other aisle seat, and we'll hope that nobody books the middle seat.
Yeah.
And then by the time we did it, somebody, she couldn't move her seat, and then I couldn't move my seat back. So now we were all over the airplane. we figured it out. We outsmarted ourselves here, but we figured it out. But that was, and then we're trying to call American Airlines, and we couldn't dial internationally for some reason. Our phones were creating problems for us. So it's just like that last couple of hours of stress of trying to figure out, well, how are we going to eat tomorrow? Are we going to take a taxi to the train station? Are we going to walk? What if the train's late? What are we going to do? It's just all those kind of things. But, listen, we will remember this trip for a really, really long time. We've just seen some things and done some things for as often as we've been fortunate enough to come to Spain. We've just done some things on this trip that we had never done before. We just stumbled into a Michelin-rated restaurant today for lunch. Relatively speaking, this was a meal that would have been several $100s in San Diego, and it was just way less than that today. We're both so full, I don't even know how we can eat dinner tonight, but we'll try to figure it out. At least we have a couple of hours to think about it, because 9 o'clock is still kind of early for people here. But the city was just absolutely packed today. There was just tour after tour after tour of people. We mentioned yesterday on the podcast that they have this festival here for an entire week of all the floral exhibits. So everywhere you walk in the city of Girona, there's floral exhibits, and they have maps, and there's probably 75, 80 of them. And you can go and you can chart a little course, and you can follow your way through the streets and see all these wonderful, beautiful decorative exhibits that people from the city have contributed to. And I don't even know that any of these pictures are doing anything here justice, but it's just been it's been incredible. But like I said, I would like to not stumble into Michelin-rated restaurants as sustenance for the middle of the day. But at some point it'll be okay to just have a couple of chicken sausages, I suppose, and a little bit of fresh fruit. But we've been very fortunate, and we will be back for sure. And I won't be back in time for SDFC on Wednesday night against Colorado Rapids. But I'm on the call on Saturday, and we'll see what happens. I did wake up today to a lot of texts from John. I do appreciate that, telling me in great detail what it was that happened with the Knicks now up 3-1 over the Boston Celtics. I hate that Jason Tatum gets hurt. Though obviously that will increase the likelihood that the Knicks will advance in the series. But I'm a fan of sports first, more so than I am of teams, so I don't like seeing that sort of stuff. I saw that Robert Suarez blew his first ever game.
Yep.
And that your Mavericks, John, got the first overall pick in the NBA draft. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that. But yes, we are excited to just eventually get back home. I have one last request for Caesar, and that is to buy us a chicken quesadilla and leave it in the refrigerator so that we can eat it when we get home tomorrow night, because we've been craving some Mexican food. We resist the temptation to walk into restaurants here in Spain that are self-described Mexican restaurants. We do resist that urge, but yeah, we will look forward to hopefully getting back into the flow here over the next couple of days. So thanks for you holding down the fort, because I know this has been a moving target for me, and I'm sending you random messages and conversations with people who you've never met before, like my friend Juan from yesterday. So thank you for doing a lot of the heavy lifting here for the podcast for the last couple of weeks.
No problem. And just peek behind the curtain, you did send me something on Sunday, I think, before the El Clasico. And I was getting ready to post it to the podcast feed, but I think the game had already started. And you were like, I was just messing around. You don't need to post that. And it was good, because there was a point in the middle of it where I'm pretty sure it was your wife, Leah, yells somewhere near the microphone, "Shut the fuck up, man!" And then you start laughing. You're like, yeah, get your voice off. We don't want to hear from you. Which I'm putting some pieces together, and I'm thinking was Juan, who did eventually make his appearance on the podcast yesterday. Leah, now you said she has a taste for it, so she could become a regular contributor, our first additional contributor to Section 1904. But I had a question. I have two questions for you, and then we can move on to sports. Two questions about your trip. One is I want a physical description of Juan, because hearing his voice and the way he talked, he was like a walking stereotype. Like, he's central casting for, like, I met a tall, dark, and handsome stranger in Spain, and I lost a couple days in the wine and the sex and the vino. Like, it was just so funny how attractive he sounded, just his voice and his way of talking. He just sounded so handsome, and I was like, let me find out that this guy is like, looks like me. Right? Like, but no, I'm imagining tall, dark, and handsome. He's got a beautiful, like, 5 o'clock shadow, a great head of hair. Like, and so I'm very curious about that. And I think you said you have a picture that you can share with me to answer my question. While you find it and send it to me, my follow-up question. I remember listening to Bomani Jones when he got back from, I think it was Spain, and Bomani is very openly someone who smokes marijuana on a daily basis, right? But knows not to fly with it because, you know, that you can get in a lot of trouble for that. So Bomani had this story about going to Spain and then finding like a weed shop, like a pot cafe, I think that we used to call them, like Amsterdam area, in Spain, and his experiences in that. And I thought that was great. Now, you, like myself, are someone who occasionally engages in weed, marijuana, pot. And I'm wondering if you guys have talked a lot about the wine and the cava. I haven't heard anything about any beer, and I've heard nothing about any drugs outside of that. So I'm wondering if they have played any role in your trip.
Have had some beers from time to time. I just sent you a picture of Juan. So Juan, you got it. You hit the nail on the head.
He's very handsome.
He's a handsome man. And I like hanging around with Juan, too, because he's a little bit older than me. So not many people that we hang around with these days are actually older than me. But yeah, I think Juan's 56, 50, somewhere in that range there. And he's a very successful human being. I was sort of joking about not putting his last name on the podcast. His last name is Tovar. He is a San Diego resident, has been for decades and decades and decades, considers San Diego home, medical professional. He's a doctor, married,
oh, nice.
Kids. Yeah, married, couple kids. Kids in their teenage years. Colombian, it's often said that Colombians speak the most perfect form of Spanish. I don't know how many people have ever heard that phrase, but it is often said that Colombians speak just an absolutely pure form of Spanish. So his Spanish, I love listening to it because I really can understand it. He pronunciates all the words. No marijuana. Did have some beers from time to time just to mix it up because my taste buds are, I think my taste buds are honestly a little bit fatigued with, and
Makes
that's
sense.
a real thing. Like an honest, like it's a real thing. I think my taste buds are a little bit fatigued with the amount of wine that we've had here. We still have a bottle of cava that we have to drink because we brought it with us. So, woe is us. But I've had some beer. There's a very, very popular Spanish beer called Estrella, Estrella Damm, D-A-M-M. So I've had some of those. I'm not a huge beer connoisseur, so I really wouldn't know. And I've had local beers. There's one, I think it's called 1870, or I guess in Spanish it would be 1870. But I've had some of those, a couple of cocktails just towards the end of the night, a couple of espresso martinis here and there just to mix it up. I have walked past a couple of cannabis shops. Mm-hmm. I have noticed that, and I must say I did not realize that cannabis was legalized in any capacity here. I haven't seen one in Girona, but I saw one in Barcelona and I saw one in Valencia.
Well, remember, Spain is not Catalan.
Right. Catalonia is not España. It's John, I could tell you so many stories. The flags, the separatist flags are all over this place. Anyhow, and it does feel like you're in a different country. But I walked past them, but I haven't seen them. To answer the very, very long-winded no. Sure. I've seen them. I haven't participated in any of that. So we did notice, and I was like, whoa, I didn't know that stuff was happening around here.
That does answer my questions. Thank you for that. And I know we're a little low on time because you gotta put together stuff to travel, and you're in a hotel lobby. So
is it noisy?
No, it's not bad actually. But no, I was wondering how much of the Padres game, the NBA action, you wanted me to kind of recap for you so we can get into it.
Well, I will say, I looked at the Padres score, and I understand it's 2 straight, and Dylan Cease is going tonight. The first thing I want to say is, I knew they were playing the Angels. Got up this morning, saw the score, saw that they lost, and I went, okay. And then I saw the box score. I was like, whoa. And so I don't know what your process is. You're watching the game, so you don't have to do this sort of stuff. I go to Baseball Savant and just look up, what it was that Suarez was doing in the ninth. And obviously, he missed the strike zone a lot. He threw, 33 pitches, I think. Yep. 13 of them were in the zone, and he had one swinging strike.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what exactly to make out of that. He threw 21 fastballs, and velocity seemed good. I'm just going to – my box score analysis is that this was just an off night for him and probably nothing to worry about. But when you go from a 0.5 ERA to a 3 ERA based on a couple of outs in the ninth inning, and you have 4 walks, maybe there was something mechanically that just was a little bit off, not to be all Ruben Niebla, but it doesn't sound like anything that would raise alarm bells yet.
That's pretty much exactly where I am as well. And, it reminded me, I have in my head burned the first time Robert Suarez came in for the Padres, which
was the Diamondbacks, yeah.
Against the Diamondbacks 2 or 3 years ago. It was a save opportunity. I feel like it was like the first game of the season or the second game of the season. And you could tell he had great stuff. He just couldn't get it in the strike zone. And then he got to the point that he had to take something off to get it in the strike zone, and then he started getting hit. And that's kind of what happened yesterday, too. Like, his fastball just wasn't going exactly where he wanted it to go. He's trying to hit the black. It's going a little outside, a little inside, a little high, a little low. He's trying to throw the changeup. He's bouncing it in the dirt. Everything was just like he couldn't control it. He had 98% of his control. But when you throw 101, like, it's really important to have 100%. And eventually you saw him starting to take stuff off, and now he's throwing the fastball in the zone, but it's 97, it's 98. And, I saw a lot of people on social media saying, like, Schilt should have pulled him earlier than he did, and et cetera, et cetera. Like, look, Suarez had thrown, in the previous 4 days, Suarez had thrown 3 pitches. Like, he was fresh. He was fine. Maybe it's rust. Maybe it was just a bad day. Maybe his finger hurt for some reason. I thought leading up to the ninth inning, the Padres played a great game. I know we don't really have time to get into it, but there's going to be more games against the Angels. That Angels team just looks like it has life to it. Remember we were talking about the Ron Washington, Mike Trout, they're banning cell phones in the clubhouse and all that stuff. That dugout was just active. Every time they showed it, there's guys moving around, there's guys talking, there's guys playing games, and then they go to the Padres dugout, and everyone's kind of sitting there just watching the game, right? And they're cheering everyone on. But there was just a lot of activity in the dugout, and that they just look like a good team. It's weird. It's weird to see the Angels look like a good team, but they look like a good team. The Padres played them really good. They were in a position to win. They brought in the essentially best closer in baseball this year, and he couldn't hit his spots. It happens. No one's perfect. It happens from time to time. And you brought up the point that, he gave up 5 earned runs and his ERA goes up to 3, which is still not a bad ERA to have. I like Fangraphs has this page called Roster Resource, and there's a thing on there called Power Rank, and it's Power Rank by position, and they show you, like, based on their silly rankings, how good is this guy against other people at his position, and how good has he been in the last 2 weeks, right? Robert Suarez, after yesterday, is still their number 2 closer in baseball. Like, after giving up 5 runs and getting 1 out. So, look, he wasn't going to be a 0.5 ERA or less than that forever. He wasn't going to be perfect all year long. And the problem with closers is when they have a bad game, you usually lose. And that's what happened. But outside of that, I thought the Padres played really well.
Yeah, it seems that way. it seems like it was really sort of shocking based on everything that we've seen from Suarez so far this year. Yep. He had been perfect. And to have, 4 walks in less than an inning is just really sort of shocking based on, I think Schilt used the word spoiled, based on how spoiled we've been watching Robert Suarez. It's always tricky when you know the result and you say, well, this should have happened or that should have happened or you should have gotten him out of there or you should have done this. Because you see what the alternative is sometimes. You bring in Alec Jacob, and I understand that's a high leverage situation, but you do bring somebody else in, and what happens? That person gives up the grand slam. So it's a lot easier to manage these games through the benefit of hindsight. when you know what it is that's happened already. I'm somebody who's going to stick with Robert Suarez based on what he's done. So I also didn't see it, so I can't tell. Maybe there's body language was screaming out to some that he should have been pulled from the game. I don't know.
He looked like he was frustrated, disappointed, but it's not like he looked like he was hurt or anything like that. He was just like, damn, like I can't get my fastball in the zone. I can't get the changeup to touch the bottom of the zone. Like I don't know what else to throw at them right now, type of thing. He was frustrated, but you needed a strikeout in that situation, and your options were leave him in, or here were the 4 pitchers that hadn't been in the game yet, the 4 relievers that hadn't been in the game yet. Jacob, who came in, Matsui, who's a lefty, Peralta, who's a lefty in a fucking gas can, and Sean Reynolds, who's a rookie. Like, you didn't really have a lot of options there. He went with Suarez as long as he could, and then he was like, all right, I guess I have to throw it to Jacob and hope we get a ground ball, a double play, something like that. And the grand slam was just smashed. It was just a meatball. And what's funny is it looked like it had a lot of spin, and it looked like it went right where the catcher's glove wanted it to go. And it was just a meatball that got smashed. There was no world in which that ball wasn't hit over the wall.
And by the way, it's also been pointed out too that if there's been a little bit of a blemish from this good start, it's that the bullpen has been a little leaky recently.
They're tired, yeah.
So when you have your best player on the mound, man, like I leave him out there. I just do. And 8 walks on the season, 4 of them come in less than an inning. Yeah. I'm just going to suggest, until proven otherwise, that is nothing more than an aberration. And, you should keep him there as long as you possibly can until you realize, okay, it's just not for him and it's time to move on. But, hey, they get the Angels again tonight. That's the other thing. When I looked at the box score this morning, you mentioned seeing inside of the Angels dugout and seeing everybody was lively and having fun. It made me realize that since they were playing the Angels, the first thing I think most of us think about when we think about the Angels is who? Mike Trout. Yeah. And it's just like you don't hear much about him anymore, do you?
Nope.
Like you just hear almost nothing. And I know he's been back and forth again with the injuries, unfortunately for him, which, again, as I said about Jason Tatum, as a fan of sport, you want to see the best players out there. But, it just feels like he's really sort of off the radar now for Major League Baseball.
Okay, so I want to bring this back in a second, and I think I know how to, but you and I for years had this conversation of Mike Trout's the best player in baseball, but he's such a bad face for baseball, right? He's very generic looking. He's got a very generic personality. You can't pick him out of a lineup. The Angels haven't done any winning with him. He doesn't have any playoff moments. I think this cell phone thing and everything I saw in the dugout last night, I was there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of action moving around. Trout was always not in the action, but near the action, watching over it. And I saw that and I was like, oh, he's going to be a manager. This is not I'm going to go into media, I'm going to go work for MLB Network. You can see, maybe I'm crazy, but I'm calling my shot. You can see that he has a high level of interest in having control over his guys in the dugout, having control over the clubhouse, and keeping his guys in line and pushing them in the right direction. And I think when his guys succeed, he feels like he helped that. And I'm like, that to me looks like a future manager. And that makes sense because managers are boring guys who give boring answers, who have generic looking faces and whatever, for the most part, right? Ron Washington's not, but, and that's what I took from that. But speaking of a man I have compared to Mike Trout, you did miss one of Jackson Merrill's greatest games ever. And it's a real shame that he lost, that the Padres lost, and that perfect Jackson Merrill after the game. I think I posted Marty Caswell's video of it. They're asking him about the game, and he's like, I don't want to talk about it. Yep. I don't want to talk about it. You know my goals. My goals are to win. We lost. I don't want to talk about my game. The only time they really got an answer from him was when they asked him about Suarez. And he was like, hey, that's we trust in Bobby. We love Bobby. Bobby's the best, and that's baseball. That happens sometimes. Sometimes you don't have your stuff, and no one's perfect, and et cetera, et cetera. But he had 2 of the best diving catches I think I've ever seen from at least him at center field. He had one coming in, one going to the side, and he hit a double, a triple, and a single. He was a home run away from the cycle. I think he hit all of them almost straight down the right field line. This was like one of those games where I was like, man, if the defense could play a shift anymore and just shift like 3 guys over to the right side, it probably takes away like 2 of those hits. But Merrill had a great game. He had a fantastic game. Tatis hit a home run. Like, again, team did everything right. They did everything right. Outside of Bogarts had a weird thing where he got thrown out at third by like 5 feet and then just slammed into the catcher, and it was really awkward, and he shouldn't have been sent. But who cares? You lost by 4 runs. Like, that's not going to change anything. But no, it's a shame that Merrill game is not going to be remembered as like this incredible game that the Padres pulled out. It's a game that got choked away at the end.
Yeah, I saw both of the catches. I would tell you, I think that there was the second one. The second one to me where he's kind of carving in a little bit to his left.
Yeah.
That one I thought was really, really special. So hard to believe again, less than 2 years ago, John, this is a player who was making the move from single A to double A as an infielder.
Yeah.
As an infielder.
As a shortstop, yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy to think about that. So, all right, well, hopefully with Dylan Cease. Now, again, this is something I think, just not to sound alarmist, but since Dylan Cease did have a little bit of the dreaded forearm cramping, hopefully it was just cramping, and passed all tests, seemed to be in good spirits after his last outing, through his bullpen session, according to Kevin Acee. So just something to pay attention to that you see. The Dylan Cease, who's been mostly really, really good for the Padres, a little later on against the Angels. Anything else, Padres?
No, just on the Cease thing. He had that like no hitter into the 7th last game before he gave up the home run and then got pulled with the forearm soreness. I noticed at the beginning of that game.
My wife just brought me a glass of cava, by the way.
Lovely. Well, hey, you do have to drink it, right?
Yes, you found me in the lobby. Good job.
Not a big
I told you she's become a crackhead now. I think she just wants to be on the podcast.
Sure.
Is that what you want?
No.
No? Are you sad to be going home?
Yes.
Very sad?
Beyond sad.
Are you sad to maybe, or happy to at least get in a better rhythm?
Yes.
Okay.
I am happy to go back and use the gym.
I was listening to you talking yesterday, and I was like, "There's no way that Darren's going to be satisfied with a 30 to 45 minute lunch anymore." You were like, "Oh, we do 2, 3, 4 hour lunches like every day." I was like, "No, it's going to be a hard transition."
My wife did want me to say, because afterwards, I was doing the podcast with one microphone.
Yeah.
Which was a little bit of a challenge with 3 people.
Yeah.
But when we were talking about how we go out to lunch and like literally, today we had a bottle of wine with lunch. Yesterday we had 2 because there's 3 of us.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds for people that don't drink a lot, you're like, oh man, that's, as Juan said, like you do spend several hours doing this.
Yeah.
It is a longer experience. You're not just chugging wine. And my wife did also want to point out that the wine here is lower in alcohol.
That makes sense.
So, a lot of the wine that we drink in the States is like 14, 15%. And here it is, honestly, like 11%, 10, 11%. So it is different. I think she was just wanted me to point that out. All right, last thing on the Padres. Go ahead.
Man, I don't even remember what it was anymore. What were we just talking about when the coffee
Dylan Cease.
Oh, yeah. I noticed at the beginning of the broadcast for the game against the Yankees that they were saying that Cease had greatly increased, and I could look at his StatCast and look this up. He had greatly increased how often he was throwing his slider. They were like, at his last start, he threw his slider like 40% of the time, and normally he throws it 20% of the time. I didn't check to see if that was the same against the Yankees and the almost no-hitter, but those are 2 things that tend to get tied together: increased slider usage with, forearm tightness, and then everything that leads to that afterwards. So something to keep an eye on for me today is just going to be like, how often is he throwing the slider? Is he throwing it a lot more? And if he comes up gimpy at some point in the next couple starts, I'm going to be like, well, I think we know what happened here is he started throwing a lot more sliders.
Well, it's an interesting thing. I won't go too far down this road, but sometimes when you hear about pitchers who are established and they start tinkering around with a bunch of new kinds of pitches, and then, usually, right, like Musgrove from a year or 2 ago, he's tinkering around. He wants to do things a little bit differently. Maybe Suarez from a couple of years ago. Sometimes, you do hear a little bit about that. You go, I don't know. I thought the other version was pretty good. Do we really need to be messing around with a bunch of new pitches here? Or But I don't know where that line is between having to reinvent a little bit and show everybody something a little different, or just going back to the thing or sticking with the thing that has made you so successful. But it has been an observation made, and we can just leave it at that for now. John, I got to say, I am as shocked as anybody that the Knicks are up 3-1 against the Boston Celtics. I really am. I know it's cliche, but when you look at what happened during the regular season with the Knicks, they didn't beat any of the good teams. Any of the teams that finished ahead of them in the standings, the Knicks lost to that team during the regular season. And, on our group chat, we talked a little bit about, what reason is there to think that this is suddenly going to reverse in the postseason? And it's just that. It's the postseason, and things are different. And it is a new season, and it is cliche, and it sounds like wishful thinking, not something that you would actually say is rooted in reality. And, the first round against Detroit wasn't this, obviously, but, oh, man, even as heartbreaking as it is to see the stuff with Tatum, and that was tough video. I watched that this morning. It's tough to get some of these videos here in Europe sometimes, but I did watch that, and it was – I hated seeing that. Injuries are just the worst, and you could tell he was in so much pain. I don't know that anything's official as of the time of this recording at 10:30, but I'm as shocked as anybody that the Knicks are now one win away from going to the Eastern Conference Finals.
I'm not shocked. Let me hit on a couple things. So first of all, let's do Tatum first. I actually don't think Tatum was in a lot of pain. I think Tatum knew what happened. I think he was upset. Tatum was having one of the greatest games of his life. He was going to score 50 points, and he was either going to make the game-winning shot or he was going to miss the game-winning shot, and everyone was going to come out of that and going, Tatum gave everything he could. The Celtics outside of Tatum and Derek White were bad. And Tatum had started getting into the Knicks had been trying to, in the fourth quarter, kind of bait him into taking those step-back threes further and further away. And he was still making them. And right before he got hurt, he, missed two of them in a row. And I was like, here we go. This is where Tatum sinks the Celtics, where he just keeps settling for the step-back three. He did it one time where he had Mitchell Robinson on him, and he had beat Mitchell, to the hoop 5 or 6 times. Easily to that point, and he gets Mitchell Robinson on him, and he does a step back 28-footer 3-point shot, and it was like, all right, here comes the bad Tatum. But he was so good on defense, and he was so good to that point, and then it was just boom. And we've seen people have that Achilles injury, right? I remember the Durant one because you could see in slow-mo rippling. And I heard someone this morning say that you could see the same thing with Tatum. If you watch it last night, you see that Achilles thing just kind of ripple, and it's But we've seen that happen with Durant, with Kobe, with other people, and they don't react like it hurts. They react like their sock fell down and they're trying to pull it up, right? But they don't act like they're in pain. Tatum was acting like he was in incredible pain. And my brain says either A, it was not an Achilles tear, it was something else that was more painful, or, and I think this is more right if I had to pick one, I think he just understood what happened. He felt that feeling and he was like, oh no, I'm 30 and I just lost a year and a half of basketball and I'm not going to be able to repeat. And the Celtics have already, before the playoffs, remember the Celtics are in the process of being sold. Before the playoffs, the Celtics came out and said, this will not be our team next year. We're going to make adjustments in the offseason. So now when Tatum comes back, this might be an entirely different team. And it just, I felt like that was heartbreak. I don't think that was pain. I felt like that was heartbreak. I could be wrong about that.
Well, Mike Breen used the interesting word, right? And I guess when you think about it, I don't know that Breen realized this in real time, but he said he's in agony, right?
Yeah.
And I guess now we can think about, that choice of words. You're agonizing over everything that you just described there, even if the physical pain isn't exactly what it was that led to that reaction.
Yeah.
That was an agonizing thing for him.
It was an agonizing thing for him. Also, side thing, ESPN showing him going down the hallway in the wheelchair, bawling like a child, didn't need to happen. We don't need, I know you want to add as much didn't need to happen. The Knicks. This was the first good Knicks game I've seen in this series. Every other game has been like they just had to rock fight their way to get back into it and then wait for the Celtics to kind of implode. I texted you before Tatum got hurt that this was the most Tibbs game I had ever seen from the Knicks. And it was just every time it looked like they were done. You know, Tatum would hit like 3 threes in a row. Celtics would be up 11. They'd be rolling. The Garden would be quiet. It's like, oh no, here it comes. And then like Bridges and Hart and Brunson and Cat and Mitchell Robinson would just force it to be a game again in whatever way it needed to be. Rebounds, tough, shots made by Brunson. Bridges was all over the place. Like, it was a pure team effort, and they all played really good. But to your point, I've been thinking about this. The NBA is crazy because you need a certain kind of team to win in the regular season and a certain kind of team to win in the playoffs. And one that is good at one is usually not that good at the other. So what the Knicks have done is built a team for the playoffs that is hopefully good enough in the regular season to give them a good seeding in the playoffs. The Pistons, kind of by accident, are also built well for the playoffs, and they were good enough in the regular season to get there. The Celtics, to me, that's a good regular season team that struggles in the playoffs, which is why before last year, when they ran into a bunch of teams that were hurt, and then the Mavericks, who they just destroyed Luka, they were thought of as a team that couldn't get you there in the playoffs. Same thing with the Sixers, right? Like, you need a certain kind of team to win in the playoffs, and the Knicks absolutely have that team. It's looking like an Eastern Conference Finals between Knicks and Pacers because the Pacers are also up 3-1.
By the way, how crazy is it? You know who has home court advantage in that series?
It has to be the Knicks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Knicks were the 3, Pacers were the 4.
4, yeah. So knocking out 1 and 2 on the way to the Eastern Conference Finals would be something. Not to mention, Reggie Miller would be on the call for these games. There'd be all sorts of, look back at the 90s rivalry between these two teams. It could be really fun. Pacers are also just a crazy team that plays differently than every other team. Like, they're almost the Warriors from like 10, 15 years ago, where it's like you play them and you're like, whoa, what is this? Like, we don't see this against anyone else except the Pacers. So that could be really fun. But I think the Knicks are just, they're built really well for this. They're built really, really well to win in the playoffs. And, they're not running down like they did last year in the playoffs. And part of it, this Tatum injury is going to help them. They're not going to have to go 6 or 7 in theory. And they should be, rested well enough for whatever awaits them in Indiana. But I don't know. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't like, holy shit, I can't believe the Knicks are doing this. But it was a little bit like, oh, I think the Celtics thing might be ending sooner than we thought.
Well, it must be nice to be somebody who's objective like you. Those of us that carry these scars and these wounds, whether it's the Knicks, the Padres, St. John's, the only team, even the last decade for Barcelona, those of us that carries these kind of scars, we're sort of always expecting that the shoe will drop at some point. Western Conference 2-2 between Oklahoma City and Denver. And I guess if Golden State is going to lose to some team, the team that I would root for most in the Western Conference would be Minnesota. So I'm all good with that.
That one's just been a bummer because Curry got hurt.
Steph's hurt.
Yeah, and he's. It doesn't sound like he's going to be ready for Game 5. They were hoping that they could extend it to Game 6. We'll see if they can, but they look terrible. Without Steph, which makes sense. He's one of the 4 or 5 greatest NBA players of all time. And, Anthony Edwards looks like incredible. He looks like he's that dude. He looks exactly like he was last year in the playoffs, except a year older, a year wiser, maybe a little bit bigger and stronger, less tired. And he's definitely ready for the moment. So, yeah, if they're going to lose to someone, I can't wait to see what Minnesota does in the Western Conference Finals, assuming they make it there, because whoever they're playing is going to be a good team, and Anthony Edwards looks like he's ready for big moments.
Well, John, I have to end on this note because your Mavericks may have been the story of the night. A 1.8% shot at landing the number 1 overall draft pick. And that's exactly what happened. The drama of the NBA draft lottery. Please explain to us what's going on. What kind of inner turmoil are you dealing with?
Okay, let's get to my inner turmoil in a second. because it's complicated. Let's get to just the ridiculous fucking nature of this, right? Let's talk about this, because I don't know if you're a Knicks fan. You probably don't believe in the draft being rigged. You probably believe that Patrick Ewing was just magically, miraculously destined to be a Knick, and that there was no funny business at all.
The frozen envelope.
But the Dallas Mavericks not only had a 1.8% chance of getting the number 1 pick, they had a 2% chance of getting the number 2 pick, a 2.2% chance of getting the number 3 pick, a 2.5% chance of getting the number 4 pick, a 77.6% chance of getting the 11th pick. They should have had the 11th pick, and they got the number 1 pick. And I was listening to something this morning, and the guy was going, look, the Pelicans, they got the number 1 pick when they got a new owner, and they got Anthony Davis. When Anthony Davis got traded to the Lakers, they got the number 1 pick, and they got Zion Williamson. The year after LeBron James left the Cleveland Cavaliers, they get the number 1 pick, they get Kyrie Irving. When LeBron James decides to come back to the Cleveland Cavaliers, they get the number 1 pick. It's Andrew Wiggins. They turn him into Kevin Love. Like, a lot of this shit just seems ridiculous, and I know it feels like I'm, pulling strings together, and I'm on the board, I'm the crazy person, but like, all of that seems just as likely as the 1.8% chance that the Mavericks get this pick actually working out for them. They had the 11th best odds. 11th! The top 3 teams all have a 14% chance to get the first pick, a 13.5% chance to get the second pick, a 12.5% chance to get the third pick, and none of them did! Utah ended up with the 5th pick. The Hornets ended up with the 4th pick. The Washington Wizards ended up with the 6th pick. These are the 3 teams that were supposed to be fighting for 1, 2, 3, and none of them got there. The Sixers get to keep their pick. If it was 7 or lower, it goes to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They get a 3rd pick. They get bailed out with another piece to add to Joel Embiid and Paul George and Jared McCain and everything they have. And the Spurs get the number 2 pick, so they can add to Victor Wembanyama and Rookie of the Year Stephon Castle and Devin Vassell and Chris Paul and all of that. It's almost an impossibility what happened. It is almost an impossibility. Someone ran the numbers and they said the percentage chances that this would be 1, 2, 3 in the draft was not even a tenth. It was 0.014% chances that this would be the 1, 2, 3 in this draft. It is a distinct impossibility, and I'm using that word facetiously, and it's insane. And yeah, I do believe a little bit that maybe there was a little bit of hanky-panky going on of...
Hanky-panky?
Yeah, hanky-panky.
Hanky-panky?
Hey,
are you sure there was hanky-panky going on?
I don't know what that means. That's an elderly phrase that I'm borrowing for a second.
Yeah, you're like Richard Dawson on Family Feud back in the day. Hanky-panky.
That's true. There was some funny business going on. There was some bullshit in the way. I do believe it because
Shenanigans.
Because, look, the Mavericks traded away an MVP candidate that had just taken them to the NBA Finals and didn't bother to call anybody else. And they got a terrible trade in return. And someone made the point, and I think it was Bill Simmons. He was like, if the trade had happened now, right now, let's assume somehow the Lakers had the first pick in the draft, and they were like, hey, Mavericks, we'll give you Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg for Luka Doncic. That trade almost makes sense. It almost makes sense. And it's like, you can envision, because that almost makes sense, that somewhere, some way, there was a call, and hey, Nico, if you get him to the Lakers, we'll make sure, not only can you have Anthony Davis, we'll make sure you get Cooper Flagg too. Push all that aside. Let's get to me personally. Yesterday during the day, I was like, I'm still struggling. Am I a Mavericks fan? Am I not a Mavericks fan? Am I a Knicks fan? Am I a Clippers fan? I don't fucking know. And I was like, man, if they get the number 1 pick and they get Cooper Flagg, that I should be a Mavericks fan again, right? Like, the reason I became a Mavericks fan was like, I get to watch the whole career of Luka Doncic. Well, now I'd get to watch the whole career of Cooper Flagg. And that's not a terrible team in theory. Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, they still have Klay Thompson. Kyrie Irving comes back at some point, probably. I think he's got an Achilles too, so probably not this year. But they have the pieces to be at least watchable, at least entertaining, at least make the playoffs maybe, although the West is really hard. So I should probably just stick with the Mavericks, but like, I'm just so fucking mad at them, Darren. And they don't deserve this. And it's like they have, it's like it's the opposite of like the worst person you know made a good point. It's like the worst person you know had something very fortunate happen to them. And I'm like, no! Fuck you! Like you shouldn't get rewarded for trading away Luka Doncic at 25 years old and not shopping him and getting a terrible deal. Like you should not be rewarded for that. But here we are, they're getting rewarded for it. They still have now everyone making the jokes about Nico Harrison's going to draft someone else or Nico Harrison's going to trade this for nothing or whatever. Like I will remind them that before the Luka Doncic trade, Nico Harrison was a very good general manager. Like that team that got to the finals last year, that was a team built by Nico Harrison. And but now I'm just like, I'm still there with Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd and these, the Miriam Adelson of it all, like the Trump supportedness of it all. Like it's still got so many loathsome things about it that I want to detach from it. But I should probably just be like, all right, fine. I'll root for Cooper Flagg and the Dallas Mavericks. I don't know. I'm torn in half, Darren. I go back and forth every 5 minutes. I'm like, fuck it, I don't need him. And then I'm like, I don't know though. Like this could be an interesting thing, and the kid seems like he's gonna be good and entertaining. And I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I've wasted. I've spent so much of my life invested in the Knicks. I cannot let James Dolan ruin this for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just can't. Like it's just. I was here long before him, and I'll be here after him. I will just say two things about the draft lottery, and though I missed this, I will say I do find it to be really good TV. I'm a person that could not watch a single second of the NFL draft, and I didn't this year. But I think there's something really dramatic about the NBA draft lottery.
Yeah.
I do. Like, I just think it's good television. Even when these teams get these nerdy people up there and these good luck charms and all this sort of stuff, and it's sort of goofy with the math and who the odds are. I just think there's real drama to it, like it's not, you're not sitting around for months and months and months talking about, well, who is this team? You will talk about who this team is going to take at 1 and 2 and 3, but the build up to who's going to get the pick and who's going to be number 2 and who's going to be number 3 and where's the cutoff point for impact and all that sort of stuff, I've always thought is pretty good television. So that's number one for me.
Someone always gets their heart broken, right?
Yeah,
and
there's always the flip side of some ridiculous mathematic impossibility like what we saw last night to I can't believe that team and that fan base went through all of that for an entire season to end up at the 5th fucking pick. It's like, brutal. Absolutely
Darren, there was people talking that if the Sixers didn't get a top 6 pick and their pick went to Oklahoma City, that Daryl Morey would probably get fired soon. And instead he gets the number 3 pick.
Right. It's like real drama. Like
if he nails it, now he gets to keep his job forever, right? Like it's people's lives are on the line and we're literally watching them.
Yeah. And the number 2 thing is, what did you make of LeBron's tweet? Because LeBron put out the tweet had, I want to say 9 or 10 laughing emojis right at the time where the Mavericks won the number 1 overall pick.
Because he knows it's rigged? I don't know.
Well, there was that video that made the rounds when he went in with Pat McAfee where he talked, or he seemed to insinuate that there were some shenanigans associated with that.
I just found the tweet and someone replied to it with that clip going, LeBron told us last month that the NFL draft is rigged and he's right.
Right. I mean, we always have to, I know you could spend a lifetime trying to interpret LeBron social media posts because he's the most passive aggressive athlete of all fucking time.
Of all time.
I shouldn't curse like that in the lobby of this hotel. But, we shouldn't do it, but it is sort of fun to try to figure out the cryptic messaging behind LeBron. I mean, he's saying something, I just haven't figured out exactly what it is that he's saying.
He has to just be laughing at the rigged nature of it all.
Let's be honest. I mean, the Cavaliers also benefited from what some people thought was a rigged draft lottery process.
They got LeBron. Yeah, they got LeBron.
After he left for Miami, they got the number 1 overall pick, and they took Kyrie.
After LeBron left, they got 3 number 1 picks in I think 5 years. That's. And then when LeBron was in high school, it was like, oh, where's he going to go? Where's he going to go? Oh, shocker. His hometown Cleveland Cavaliers got the 1st pick overall. That's crazy.
Right. And then he ended up going back there, and it's Kyrie, right?
Yep.
So, and they turned it into a championship for Cleveland. So I don't know. That's the other part of the drama is that there's always the conspiratorial aspect of it, that something is going on, being manipulated behind the scenes. I mean, the frozen envelope story is one of the great stories in NBA history.
It's so good.
When they used to pull the names out of think about this for those that have no idea what we're talking about. When the Knicks got Patrick Ewing in 1985, well, they got the number 1 overall pick, and they used it to take Patrick Ewing. The NBA draft lottery was a process where you put a bunch of envelopes with team names in a bag, like in a sack, and somebody would reach into the bag and pull an envelope out and open the envelope on television, and it would be the team logo.
Yeah.
And the 10th pick is the Mavericks, and the 9th pick is the Pacers or whatever.
Yeah.
And the theory was always that the Knicks got the number 1 pick because they put the New York Knicks envelope in a freezer. So whenever who the person was, the commissioner or whomever, whenever the person would go rummaging around in this bag blindly, searching for an envelope to pull out, they knew not to take the frozen envelope because that was the New York Knicks, and they needed the Knicks to get a superstar. They needed them to get a no doubt about it superstar like Patrick Ewing. So then the frozen envelope was the last envelope selected, and that's how the Knicks ended up with Patrick Ewing. So, that's a great story. It really is, even if it's untrue, and I suspect it probably isn't true. But, it's a great story. It's part of the folklore of the NBA. So who knows? Who knows? It's very entertaining. It's very entertaining, John. All right, my cava is empty, and I suspect my wife will not be trotting downstairs for a refill. So we're going to go enjoy our final couple of hours here. We're going to take it easy. It's just about 8 o'clock, so we had such a great meal last night. I kind of am tempted to go back to the same restaurant, but this is such a foodie town. I had no idea. And so we're going to go out and explore a little bit and then make our way to the airport. And then hopefully we'll be back Wednesday night. And the next time that you and I will chat, John, I will be sitting at my desk, unless Caesar's changed the locks at our house. We will be connected. I will be sitting at my desk in Imperial Beach. So wish me luck, and hopefully we get home with no issues whatsoever. But again, thanks to you, and thanks to everybody who's listened to the podcast. I had a couple people. I know it's been a little. Listen, it's not a radio show. We want to do things a little bit differently, and hopefully people enjoy that we threw a couple change ups your way with Leah participating and some random person named Juan participating, who is really such a great guy. He went back to Barcelona today, so he just wants to go walk around the city for the entire night, and
nice.
He loves it there so much. So it's been a lot of fun. But John, you've been the best. Thank you for all the heavy lifting. And with that, we'll wrap it. Thank you, everybody who's been subscribing to the podcast. And again, we'll be back on a much more. We launched this thing, and I had this vacation. So, I don't know that the timing was ideal, but we just felt it was important to get it going. So hopefully it hasn't been too annoying to listen to this. I think it's been fun, but we'll do it again when we're back in San Diego. And John, we'll talk to you soon.